Good afternoon and welcome into the PPC. It's week 7 here, and we're going to be starting things off as normal in Europe. Finch joined by Kresnik. And Kresnik, there are a couple of things that people can expect to be a little bit different here with Paladins for week 7, but just about everything else here should be staying about the same. So I guess we could talk about, this matchup here first of all, what we're expecting from them, and then some different looks that are going to be coming down the pipeline for these rosters as well. Here are the matchups. It's Celestial versus 5 randoms, like I mentioned. Then it's Clarity up against Fatal Ambition, and then Sanguine up against Tea Party. Might be ending the day with a bit of a lopsided one down there, but I expect the Celestial 5 randoms one to be pretty close.
Oh yeah, completely agree. I think this battle for potentially second place in the European region with Celestial holding strong, I'd say, around that position, and 5 randoms having started, I believe, 0-2, and then after some roster changes, skyrocketing back up there to fight them. And this is really, I think, the first real test for Celestial of who is going to be the second seed between 5 randoms and that team.
And we're saying it that way because Dis 69, exactly like it looks in the standings right now, feel a bit uncontested, maybe a little bit more mortal here in the last week or two, but even still, they're the measuring stick, the standard that everyone else is comparing themselves to. And what we see a lot of here in Europe, in particular, Kresnik, that I think is going to make this match interesting, is that they started off doing almost no tanks. It was just like double support, triple DPS, but they've kind of moved away from it. We've seen some more traditional drafts here. Is that what you're expecting that we'll see here this next time as well, that we'll be into more traditional drafts now?
I think teams are definitely falling back a little bit onto it. There were some tank buffs with Atlas. We might see him a little bit more in the main tank role, but a lot of supports got a lot of love, and even if we go into double tank, it might be backed with double support quite a bit. A lot of them really got their healing kind of amped up. Io got better. I think that's crazy, but Io got buffs, and I really don't expect her to be leaving that ban column very often this patch.
Yeah, to be fair, Io herself kind of was a bit underwhelming, right? It was really we were picking Luna, and you were kind of stuck with Io, so I guess it makes a little bit of sense, but I'm right there with you. Odd to think that she could still be stronger. You might have also seen Fish Market there in the bans list, Krez. Talk to me a little about this. The map rotations are different here now for Week 7 and onward for a little bit, so I believe it is Frozen Garden Warder's Gate that were taken out. It's Jag Falls and Fish Market that were added back in.
Yep, just following the ranked rotation, so it's, mirroring that as closely as possible. Jaguar Falls, I think a lot of players will be happy to see back in. I fully expect to see that multiple times in the next couple of days throughout the PPC, because, that used to be one of the maps everyone wanted to play on, everyone did love to get to go on. It's similar to Bright Marsh, very flat, anything can get played, and people do really like that kind of variety of being able to be a little more flexible with what they pull out.
Well, speaking of flexibility, you're going to have to be flexible DPS-wise because you won't get Vivian or Victor to work with. You won't get the Bomb King either. And there it is, finally, the IO ban being kind of snuck in there. 5 randoms forced into it. So Celestial will have to go somewhere else for their support here this time. And like you were saying, we might be seeing more of that double frontline, double support to kind of back them up. And this will be our first look at it. Terminus picked here first overall. And Terminus can be pretty strong. You like this as that first pick?
It's great on this map specifically. Ice Mines, he can zone out choke points completely, more or less. That Siphon can totally lock it out. Without Bomb King to pair up with him, maybe a little bit less lethal, but still, blasters do so much on this map. Terminus completely turns them off. A lot tougher to deal with. Plus the burst damage he can bring to a fight once he gets those charges. Very lethal combination. But 5 randoms answer back with, I think, strong picks. Zhin can just ignore the Terminus, dash through him, go into the back line, and that Grover is going to be able to keep the team healed up the whole time, even when playing in relative safety. You can heal right through those walls. Play wherever you want. Keep your team going.
We have seen Grover be strong. Sometimes stuns come in big, and then obviously the ultimate as well. A big team fighting cooldown to try and keep track of as well. So 5 randoms may have had to give up the Terminus, but I think they're feeling strong. But take a look now at Celestial locking down yet another frontliner here in the Inara, who you think of oftentimes as that point tank, that main tank. So I guess this Terminus going to be flexing a bit more off, and they've got the Strix. If they can lock down those sight lines, things might be scary for 5 randoms.
Yeah, for sure. Strix did just get a little bit of a hit to his uptime. The Infused Crystal card getting nerfed this patch, going down to only 1 bullet per level. Definitely going to make him reload a little bit more, hold him back from locking down those angles forever. But still, with Inara Terminus able to hold the ground, he'll have all the time in the world to reload. They're going to have to push through some serious health bars if they want to be able to pressure him in the back.
That's right. If they're getting to the Strix at all, then I imagine things have already largely gone incorrectly for Celestial in some other areas. It'll be the Drogoz that they're going to pair with that as well. And I feel like we don't see quite as much Drogoz nowadays, but I think he does kind of have some spots here on Ice Mines, along with the Damba as their one support. Another one with a ton of really good supports are on the table. I'm a bit surprised they pick up here.
Damba just got amped up pretty hard this patch, where his healing got buffed, the Gourd got buffed, and the Mending Spirits has a little bit more healing up front, so now he's putting out healing a little bit faster. With that, even with that 12% win rate, those changes might be enough to let him sustain an Inara and a Terminus, but I'd say this is a really big test for exactly how good those buffs to Damba are going to be.
Yes, it is. On the other side, it's going to be the Talus. Yeah, so maybe he can get back there to him, but he's got a lot that he's going to be trying to help keep sustained up. A lot will be falling onto this Damba's shoulders. Hard to imagine we're here in a world where some of these other supports, the Ying, the Jenos, the Furia, all kind of passed up instead for the Grover here this time, picked up alongside the Damba. So on to Ice Mines we go. What is traditionally picked up kind of to buy yourself a little bit of breathing room in a set to help to make sure that you're able to make your way in a little bit further on the set. Instead, it will be our opener. And Kresnik, how are you expecting this one to shake down?
I would definitely going to think the team with Inara and Terminus, even though this seems like the more defensive thing, they're going to have to push forward. They're going to move and lock down chokes as fast as possible. I'm surprised to see them not picking up Master Riding that early. Only Ninu has it, so the tanks are going to be a little bit behind him, but they have to go in, put their face in those choke points, not let them through, because if that Ashe even gets a chance to dash into the back, things are going to be so much harder for Nyxus.
On to our very first big point fight here, and you'd expect, I would at least, the team with an Inara Terminus on it to be able to grab quite a bit of control, even with a Khan and Ashe on the opposite side. And that's the way it's going so far. 5 randoms out early, but Slop has found decent positioning in the back to put out some damage. He's poked out. He'll have to pull his head back for a moment, but 48% already on the table so far. Ovimm has just set up shop on the point. They built up to 60%, but now he's in some trouble, pinned behind, and TooTTooT found some big shots. Ashe can do that sometimes as they end up buying the first one. Closart gets the second one too, and now all the way pushed out is bolka here in the back of the Damba, so he tries to dash back, he falls too, and Celestial, even though they give a bunch of percent early on, should be able to reclaim now and start setting up for a defensive position, but a double kill for Nyxus towards the end is not bad.
Yeah, just making it easier for them to potentially hold. TooTTooT got in really easily through that stage area, and I think 5 randoms are going to have to pay a little more attention there. TooTTooT, though, trapped behind the wall. 2 Stigala in the way, a rock blocking you, and he can't go down. Celestial, they're going to have to give up a little bit more ground.
They are. That's great for 5 randoms to be able to get that kill. I don't even know if they were expecting to be able to come back in quite that cleanly. Now it's 93% for 5 randoms. This forces the Khan to step in and take a little bit more damage that he was betting for. And somehow the Drogoz lives through all of it. Ninu gets a double, and the Talus couldn't do enough damage. That was Prosper logic that couldn't keep the shots going long enough. So OT now starting to tick as in comes TooTTooT finally to keep things ticking. But once he falls to Nyxus, that's enough for 5 randoms to capture and then start on pushing.
And Nyxus getting those traded kills, like you mentioned, was key. They were able to come back in and fight an effectively staggered team of Celestial. Now they're in the back foot. They have a comp that wants to get aggressive. Zhin and Talus as the DPSs. They have to be able to push in, but if they're just getting locked out, spaced out by the backlines, by the tanks on 5 randoms, they're not going to make much happen. Ovimm does get some cooldowns forced out. The aggression coming in the front. Assert dominance. This might catch Nyxus.
It might be able to, but Nyxus still seems to be alive for now, and unfortunately they end up locking down Slop on his way in, so he can't find the kill there. Bolka finds one on a TooTTooT. A losing trade for Nyxus up close to the Talus. Not too surprised about that, but this train will continue moving now for 5 randoms. This is a lot of ground they've been able to buy themselves on Ice Mines, which traditionally this pushes a lot harder.
Yeah, but as long as they can potentially fight this here, it could be good. And the thing about Celestial here is they have to hold down this choke very close. If they go far back, they're going to open things up too much for the Strix and the Drogoz. They're all close range. It's going to be hard to hold close with the Dragon Punch coming in, though. Closer's in dire straits.
And he finds TooTTooT. I think that was who he was looking for. Closar, though, does end up getting the return kill, so maybe he would have rathered the Khan. Either way, they're only able to take care of 1 tank, but still rolling is 5 random. Slopodopolous goes down, so does Closar as well, and Prosper Logic way in the back, couldn't find any picks. That means 5 randoms find the push, doesn't even get the kill after time. 5 randoms in control.
Yeah, that was a great targeting prioritization by Ninu there, going in for the Dragon Punch near the end. The fact that he connected on TooTTooT holding that close made it so much easier. If he had just had to go deeper, if they had pulled back on that call, then it would have been a lot harder for him to actually get away with anything. He trades, suddenly that's an easy hold for Celestial, but TooTTooT maybe just doesn't dash out in time. Standard combustible build too coming out from him looking at this. I will say the condensation, I don't think I've ever had to actually say that card, but that's an interesting choice. Combined with combustible, if you're getting these AoEs, combine them with propel, that's a lot of mobility that he has on him. He can get away from fights quick, and when Celestial want to be fighting you, brawling in close range with you the whole time, you can make yourself a lot slipperier, a lot harder to kill.
We saw that worked out well for Ninu. A couple of big dragon punches that game to set up 5 randoms in an advantageous spot. Once again, 5 randoms, the first one out. Slop trying to see if he could find his target. I wasn't quite able to see. I don't think that he did. So yet again, not quite able to hit home here is this Zhin. You need a lot more value out of it, I would think, what we've seen from him and the Talus here so far. And look how pushed out they are already. Zarini gets the kill on the Closar in 5 randoms. There's just those 2 walls. How do you get past the Inara Terminus to try and force your way in at this point? I just don't see how you do it.
And that's why you pick tanks on Ice Mines. They're just keeping this completely locked down. As long as someone's watching this under flank, which they do have Ninu watching, there's no way in. They have to spend something, whether it's the Whirlwind or the True Power, to actually get this touch. 5 randoms have to play around the guaranteed touch of True Power, though. They can't overextend for this, or they're going to be caught off guard.
Closar tries to force his way in through center, but Prosper Logic opening things up with a double. That's not bad at all. So Celestial should be able to reclaim. They've given up 93%, though, to allow it to happen. Damba will go down as well. So will Zarini. This should be pretty close to a near-on wipe for Celestial now that they've cleaned up Ovimm as well. They're going to start pushing forward and starting up the zone. A little bit of fast cap here for them as well, since they're down 0-2, and maybe this is their chance right back in.
Yeah, and unfortunate timings on the deaths, though, from 5 randoms. So the tank's going down so late, there's really no way in. They actually sneak Nyxus around the backside, who is fighting the point, but there's no help for the rest of them. He makes it to the objective, can't do anything. Celestial peels back, stops him, and now all that's left for them to do is stagger out these tanks again.
And I didn't see exactly where that double came from this Talus, but that was, I feel like, the big difference maker once they were able to start flooding in up top. So that's huge. I mean, I was just saying that I felt like these 2 DPS hadn't gotten quite enough value for them, but it showed up. Meanwhile, now it's time to put bolka to test on this Damba and see if that healing is going to be enough. It's working so far as they manage to push back Celestial. That should slow down their offense for the time being.
Yeah, the double on mid came from a True Power. He actually found Nyxus there on the far side alone, caught him out because they were depending on the tanks to lock it down, so since he just slipped by with the ultimate, they couldn't really stop him. I love watching Ninu right now playing on these choke points. Combustible Drogoz in general even, we haven't really seen too much of recently, but seeing the knockback from Combustible, really, the displacement makes it so hard to enter fights. Constantly getting knocked around is not helping them. 2 people already down for Celestial.
It's so hard. I don't understand how Closar can make his way in because he just gets punished. But that's a big triple from Prosper Logic. TooTToot's there to back them up as well. And suddenly the floodgates start to open. He moves on to the 4th kill across that battle, does Prosper. And man, as soon as I said it, I felt like we needed to see more from him. Maybe he heard, maybe he knew it was his time, but he has stepped on the gas, and Celestial won't slow down.
Yeah, the Talus is really opening doors for them. As long as he can get past the Terminus, he's able to really do a ton. The Siphon is what's shutting him down, but otherwise there's really no great way to stop him, barring some great burst damage coming in. He's playing on lane with the Inara too, so she's the one who can deal with him the least. And they're already pulling back to try to slow him down. The Overcharge is going to do too much damage to stop. Dread Serpent comes in main, but it looks like it was just to slow things down in main.
Isn't even going to be able to do that. Prosper is able to make his way back out, but that's decent damage. TooTTooT gets the first kill, but that's awesome. They were able to lock down Prosper. Ovimm gets the kill credit for it, but it's still not a favorable trade for them at all. Closar comes in, locks down Zarini, and the push continues for Celestial. Able to push a couple members a bit further back out. Back in is Nyxus. He'll drop down as well, but remember, when they're able to respawn this close, they can keep this fight going. The Inara's made her way back in as well for 5 randoms to try and hold back on. They're going to have to get this done now in overtime, and will they be willing to spend any resources? Not with Nino up top hitting everybody for damage like that. Nyxus finishes off Closar. Prosper in the back falls for a double kill, and that should be enough for 5 randoms to hold on.
Yeah, brutal there. Nyxus on the objective in stealth. No one knew he was there. He contested the whole time just enough to get everybody else in, and here was that double kill on mid I mentioned. Slipped right past. Those tanks locking down choke points are so key. I said it right before it happened. If you're not ready for the true power, he'll just run all over your team, and top fragging right now for Celestial, definitely proven there. Even top damaging as well, just a little bit over his Ashe, but Ninu kind of far and away highest in the damage charts. All that cleave damage going through, kind of getting nullified by the Grover a little bit. Everybody getting hit at the same time, kind of gets taken away from everybody getting healed at the same time. But the fact that he's knocking them around, sending them out of directions they can't, sending them into directions they can't really see what's going on, having to rotate back, spend mobility cooldowns potentially to stay in the fight. It's resources that you can't afford to be spending.
But this is why there was so much extra pressure on that conversion, Kresnik. When you're down 2-0 and you get the mid-fight on Ice Mines, it's so hard to convert, and then suddenly you're in a mid-fight down 3-1 with a chance to lose the game. And it's a Dragon Punch early already. I don't know that it connected. Ninu had been on point with those all game long, and now it's Prosper's turn to get to the back line. Shuts down Ninu first and foremost, tones his head back around, looking for Ovimm, lives through the CC, can't quite get the kill, and has to retreat back. But Zarini has found himself a double. TooTTooT and Slopodopolous both drop as well, and they're gonna boot Nyxus right on out of here, so 5 randoms can try and maintain control. They're up to 60%.
The tanks managed to stay alive, but do they know that Prosper's back there? It looks like they do, but they can't really do anything to deal with him. The tanks can't even afford to slow him down. He'll come right in, go right back out, but he has all those cooldowns back.
There's the assert dominance. It is now time for TooTTooT to see what he can do. 93%, so if it's going to happen, it's got to happen now. And Ovimm on the wrong side of the wall in relation to where Prosper is. Tons of damage into the back. TooTTooT, though, gets one kill. Znost gets another. Even though Prosper has stayed alive here in the back, he hasn't been able to do enough. It's finally starting to open the door up here a little bit more as 5 randoms get wiped, and they're fast capping their way to a dub.
Every time you see someone playing in the back, you tend to think, oh, that they're kind of throwing, they're staggering themselves, but the way that he did it against that composition, forcing the tanks to not go forward, it makes it almost impossible, honestly, for 5 randoms to really keep things locked down. If their tanks aren't holding in the front, slowing down the super aggressive Celestial composition, there's no way they can stop them from coming back in with the ultimates they have to spend. Right now they're trying to repush and gain some ground. TooTTooT, caught up by the wall, goes down to Ninu.
And so far here, Kresnik, I mean, both of these caps from Celestial have been where they've given up a ton of percent early and then used fast cap basically to win one fight and then just secure it on the back of that. I'm wondering when it's more even in a potential 3-3 or something like that, if they'd be able to make that same strategy work, because they basically only had to win one fight.
Yeah, it really is key on Ice Mines, especially when you almost sometimes even without fast cap only have a one fight. With fast cap, it's more or less impossible. Yeah, it's Ice in general. They have to go so far when you can't aggressively zone because of the potential for a true power, because of someone hiding behind. You really force yourself into giving up a lot of fast cap advantage or playing right into their hands.
This is great from 5 randoms, though. They have been truly stalling out Celestial, letting them get almost no progress. Look how much work Prosper's having to do way back near the midpoint just to try to then get control of this payload, and 5 randoms not giving it up. That should be a nice kill into Nyxus, though, and maybe open this a bit more. You can see how low Zarini and Ovimm are back, slowly stopping the payload from moving from around the corner and using that wall to their advantage, too. But now the jig is up. They should be able to figure out where they are and force them to reset that defense, and finally Celestial can get this payload moving.
As long as you can grind that time down, it's so important on Ice, because the card has to go so far anyway. Only 40 seconds to push this last corner, and 5 randoms have a comp that don't have to hold close like Celestials do. As soon as 5 randoms get pushed all the way out to these choke points, they just sit back in their spawn. They don't have to keep them locked down. Tanks stay forward. The DPS can afford to stay a mile back and just let Nyxus do whatever he wants.
So TooTTooT will be the frontline member for them. I talked about how important this fight was, because potentially moving into the next mid-fight with a chance to just lose off the back of it. and having to still do more work even if you defend. Well, it's even truer here this time as Celestial pushed back out. Slop takes way too much damage this first time. They're making decent progress, but this is where the fight truly begins. They've got the payload through, and now can 5 randoms hold on. Celestial do have a ton of ultimates, but do they even want to expend them here potentially? Ovimm takes care of Prosper Logic a moment ago. Closar, though, does bring Ovimm back in, and low in the back is TooTTooT as well, and Slopodopolous. Those two both end up falling. That should be enough for 5 randoms to hold on after grabbing those 2 kills. It's so difficult, it feels like, on Ice Mines to get this conversion.
Yeah, especially against Inara Terminus. I mean, they're on the card. They're just both standing in Domba's gourd. Terminus siphoning on the Inara and then siphoning for himself when you turn to focus him. It's just hard to really confirm any of the kills. I think 5 randoms, excuse me, Celestial have to be happy that they forced out the Dread Serpent, forced out the Flashbang, things out of the way that could potentially have slowed them down a little bit on being really aggressive on this mid-fight. Those are, I think, 2 of the biggest kind of things that would have slowed them down, hazards that they would have had to deal with, big CCs. Now they just have to worry about the combustible bubble and seismic crash. Seismic crash takes so long to come out. If they can go fast enough, it's practically a non-factor. They just have to find a good place for this Assert Dominance to land and potentially open up with an Overpower to save Assert Dominance in case things go wrong.
That's why we're following along here with Closar to see if he can find a target early and maybe get them off the map. The Drogoz goes right into the Dragon Punch, but he ends up falling, cannot get it off in time. That's huge that they open that up with a double. It does cost them Slop, but now we should be able to say goodbye to the Terminus and Zarini from that point, obviously. Can't afford to do any kind of ram, and any that bolka will drop off as well just so we can respawn with the squad. And that's the first time we've seen Celestial cleanly win a fight at the start, and they just came in with a bunch of ultimates and used them well.
Yeah, I want to see how Virams want to retake this. Looks like almost impossible to with Prosper holding down that backside, and this reanimate, if it gets used, it's just going to buy them space, but he's not anywhere near the objective. Ovimm, actually, look, he's snuck behind.
Ovimm has made his way on, so he is contesting for now, but he's way in the back. Slopodopolous putting damage on him. That's forcing him back. The overtime now ticking, but that has bought a little bit more space, but not if Slop can come in and cut Ninu down to size. Celestial have now won 3 mid-fights in a row, Kresnik. They've stalled on all these defenses, but this is Ice Mines. That's likely to happen. What's really starting to come to fruition for me is that Prosper Logic is getting to the back line. He's pumping out the damage.
Yeah, it's so tough to keep those flanks locked down sometimes. There are enough places to be able to flank on this map, even with those strong lockdown tanks on your side. If they just keep abusing that, then you have to either move faster or have both of your DPS potentially watching that lane. I don't think 5 randoms can really afford to do that. They're not able to spend that resources, but now they play together, they play close enough to catch out Slop, and look at this, everyone in Celestial just caught in a corner.
Oh, this is bad. What had looked like they'd earned a ton of early ground with this payload push has now turned to the exact opposite because of how they all got clumped up, and as if Ninu hadn't been doing enough damage already, he gets a ton of extra damage. But speaking of Ninu, I feel like that is what we've missed in these last 2 fights or so. I don't think he's had very good Dragon Punches that have really connected these last 2 times.
I think he has to use them more reactionary, honestly. I feel like he's trying to open with them, and they're just too ready for it. They shout it and live through it. He gets walled off by his own team sometimes. They just need to find a way to react with it and open these fights with something else, like a pick on Slopodopolous. That works for me.
Yeah, not bad. Closar falls as well. What was a decent push for Celestial has now been truly robbed from them. 5 randoms brought this all the way back to essentially a mid-fight in their favor here as well as Ninu continues his onslaught as he has all game. TooTTooT does what he can, but gets pushed all the way back. And this is what it can sometimes look like here on Ice Mines. Now 5 randoms setting up in the same position that makes the mid-fight so difficult with this Terminus up front, blocking out all the damage.
Yeah, and with only 40 seconds left on the clock, they're going to have to do something explosive, honestly, if they want to make this work. But look at this, both tanks in the same choke point. Prosper actually managed to sneak behind on the right side. I don't know if he's still on his mount, but he hasn't taken much damage at all. They have to give up mid completely because one person wasn't watching the flank.
And it does end up costing them Zarini, so now 5 randoms, you can tell, are fully backing up, trying to get back into position, but you already mentioned it. It's 15 seconds to go, and look how far back the payload is. This is very unlikely to be an actual conversion. I mean, I gotta say, instead it's what can they strip away as Prosper tries to get forward and force out some cooldowns. Not much more there. This will have to happen in overtime, and without TooTTooT, that becomes just that much more unlikely. Ninu gets his damage onto the backline onto Slop again. He's done it all game long. Close hard falls as well. Prosper does do good work to get to the backline, get the kill onto Bolka. Might even win this trade up against Ninu, but now that everyone's getting their heads around, that's enough. 5 randoms defend successfully, and we will indeed make our way to a 3-3 fight.
And this time they have the ultimates that can slow down the aggression, so maybe Dragon Punch doesn't have to be spent as that initiation tool. They can wait for the aggression and then counter it, have Dragon Punch potentially to slow down the zone. Things definitely looking a little bit better, I would say, for 5 randoms on this coming mid. If they can stay close enough to peel for each other. I say have Zarini, appeal for Nyxus, potentially flashbang anyone who wants to follow up, deny all the damage. If you can rotate out after that assert dominance comes in. But I think they have a great chance to make this work, especially with, I guess I was about to say all this master riding, but then I looked at the other side and saw it's basically evenly traded. Only person who's going to be a little slow on the mid fight is Bolka, and they better hope they don't need that Dread Serpent right at the starter. They're not going to be feeling too good about it.
Now, you will not be there nearly as quickly as all these level 3s that are already picked up. TooTTooT is the one that gets there early. The Dragon Punch coming out quickly again, but TooTTooT was so close, there was no way Ninu could miss it, and they turn around and find the kill in the back line as well. That's huge. They do lose Zarini for it, and Prosper is still standing. That is a thorn in their side. Ovimm, all alone on the point, ends up dropping with Znost here to drop the Whirlwind. It's Celestial that are in control. Nyxus has done good work to contest with that invisibility before, but not this time. Prosper snips it out, and Celestial have complete control. This could be 4 mid-fights in a row for them.
And they have assert dominance too, so they have a great way to stun someone who's trying to get aggressive or just lock down space, but Reanimate's still being available, and they're letting in 5 randoms. They can't be doing this. They assert dominance to body block, but they can't block everything. Ovimm touches the point. This seismic crash could change things.
And now they've brought in Zarini as well. Really, the entire squad is up there, but their backline was left all alone. Nyxus and Bolka get chewed up and spit back out. They lock down Zarini as well. Away from the point, there will be no Reanimate this time to try and help out as the overtime ticks. Ovimm cannot make his way in. What a turn and what a change. Suddenly, it is Celestial with the victory with essentially 4 in a row.
No matter how many defenses you win, if you can't cap, you can't win. You have to win off of ability to be aggressive. Bolka actually showing up slow almost helped them out. They actually caught Slop on a really deep flank, but no one turned to help him. He Dread Serpented Slopodopolous, got him really low, but Slop just ended up winning the trade, and suddenly 5 randoms had to win a mid-fight where Celestial was capping without any heals.
And that fight started off with a good Dragon Punch from Ninu. I mean, that was another thing we talked about hadn't really worked in those last couple of fights. They got rid of TooTTooT really early on that fight, and that didn't turn out to be enough for them either. I mean, that's just impressive from Celestial, because how did the first fight go? It was a 1 mid-fight from 5 randoms around those beefy tanks to a successful conversion, and from then on, they couldn't get really anything to work.
Yeah, they just couldn't, and they couldn't find a good way to bait them into the backline DPSs. I think having 1 backline, 1 flank, being more flexible really does tend to work on this map. Slop was kind of their hybrid, I guess, with the Yomi strikes coming in from him, but the double flanker just ended up eating the tanks alive when they tried to get a little bit too aggressive. The pressure that was coming in from both the off tanks, both the flankers, all walking into Inara, all walking into Terminus. I mean, Ovimm and Zarini took like 400,000 damage collectively, and Celestial had more to spare after that even.
Yeah, like, we could have put out plenty more. It didn't matter how much they were taking with how relevant most of the damage they were doing was. And that's kind of the conversation you were having in the middle of the game about what we were seeing from Ninu. I think Ninu was putting out really good damage, but when you consider how much of it was getting relatively healed back up or was coming at ineffective moments, I mean, that big delay they had was pretty nice. But a lot of the times, right, it didn't end up getting a whole lot of value out of it.
Yeah, I mean, he did 200,000 damage, but who cleans up on that damage? Nyxus stealthing in? Maybe that, or potentially the tanks already being close. But they're just trying to hold these chokes to stop them from getting onto the backline. They just couldn't clean up on all this damage that Ninu was doing.
Well, as we expected, this match between 5 Red and Celestial has been close, so it's on to map number 2, and it shall be Serpent Beach. So let's hope Io is yet again banned, or this is a map where she can do quite well for herself. Man, we expected this to be close. We talked about how it's that match for potentially the 2nd seed to kind of be that challenger to D69, and how Celestial have kind of been on the up here a bit lately, or rather 5 randoms, excuse me, and they're looking good right now on the back of that improvement, despite Celestial being the ones that won that first map.
Yeah, I think 5 randoms were looking good, but Celestial figured them out. And 5 randoms have to be a little bit more flexible if they want to be able to actually take this win over Celestial, who have been looking great since the start. 5 randoms, their climb. If they want to keep it going, they have to figure out a way around what Celestial was doing, around that crazy aggression that as soon as it slipped past their tanks just seemed to falter in the back. Io is first banned by Celestial, as you suggested. Interesting for them to do it on first pick, though, for me.
Agreed.
I think you want to hold on to that, or at least take it first. That she has better healing now, more healing in the tank with the buff to the Moonwalk card. There's just a lot that she could bring to your team, and denying it from yourself, I'm not sure how much I like that decision.
I don't love it either. You could at least force 5 randoms to ban it and then take whatever the next priority pick is afterwards. But they don't want to deal with the IO. They take it off the board, and instead they're grabbing the Inara. But when I think of Serpent Beach, I always think of these really like high mobility vertical flankers on this map. Like the Androxus kind of comes to mind for me, something like a Maeve or an Eevee, those types of picks here. I'm a bit surprised that those are all potentially open. Do you expect they'll be prioritized here?
They'll be picked eventually. I think, like you said, there's a lot open, so they don't really necessarily have to look for it this early. They know they'll get the Eevee, Maeve, Andro, Buck. If they want only one, there's so many choices they don't have to worry about it too much.
Right.
5 randoms, though. Furia. I mean, that screams aggression to me, which makes sense considering the change of pace from last map, if that's what they want to follow up on. But this is our first look at the nerfed Furia. Wrath decaying a little bit faster. Shield card a little bit worse, maybe not healing as much, and definitely not putting out as much damage. We'll have to see exactly how much of a hit that is, but having Ashe, who's looked, I think, fantastic since the last changes to her, being able to always been good on Serpent Beach, crossing that distance on the far right side. Hopefully she can slow down this Androxus, who has had, I think, a stellar performance across all the regions so far in the PPC.
You win or you die.
Yeah, Androxus, I think, has earned his current spot in terms of where he's being valued right now, and we should be able to see on a map like Serpent Beach in particular, so Celestial grabbed that up. I'm also glad to see Furia and Jenos pick back up here again. Thank you, fellas, for letting me feel some comfort here in the world that these guys, or that these champs are still ones that you want to make sure you're picking up. And then just as you sort of thought, the Buck also being picked in response to that Andro on the other side.
Yeah, and Buck is the counter flanker, so if they really want to slow down this Androxus, you pick Buck, you go bulk up. Anytime they try to fight you, you throw him in the way. Either you put him in the back line and make everyone else have to turn and let your team deal with the Andro, or you just send the Buck off to go do it himself. See how long you can keep him delayed, and if you can win that your own fight in the meantime.
I'm surprised it's picked over the Eevee. I mean, I have been very much swayed over to the Eevee camp here lately, but I understand it's plenty strong in its own right. It'll be Maeve that rounds it out for Celestial, so they're going to be relying on Inara in particular. She's kind of the Luna of this, right? Putting her on the point, and then everyone else get out there and do that work. And on the other side, 5 randoms going to let Ashe handle most of it, with Buck kind of taking a little bit of that burden off her in terms of the only front line.
And I think I actually really like Celestial's comp here. I like the double mobility they have. If anybody tries to get on the Inara, surely the Vivian's just going to be playing close enough to her to brawl her that Buck. And Ashe potentially going to struggle getting aggressive if that Vivian is always in the way.
Going to be very reliant, I would imagine, on the assert dominance is that Ashe. And it's tough. We've seen Ashe do well, I feel like, when she is the solo tank, but this is just a ton of damage on the side of Celestial, right? Between the Andro, the Maeve, and that Vivian. That burn is really going to be nuts the later that the more and longer this game goes on. So finding some kind of way to punch through all that is going to be critical on the side of 5 randoms here so far. Things looking fairly standard, though, Kresnik. How are we expecting these fights, I suppose, to sort of play out, though?
The way the 5 randoms have their comp, I think they're going to rush to try to take the enemy high ground and control both high sides of the map, but Celestial can just play at a distance. They can just poke. They don't necessarily need to commit to it. As long as TooTTooT plays safe, he doesn't worry too much, but they're actually going really slow, so split from their Ashe. They can't leave TooTTooT on an island like that. He'll just get burnt down or not be able to help them at all.
And it's Ninu that ends up dropping first. TooTTooT does still stand inside that central area. They really haven't looked towards mid at all. It was as you expected, these high ground fights. It's just that it was Celestial that came out on top here early, now getting the back to cut down bolka as well. And Celestial's onslaught, once they figured it out on Ice Mines, I guess it's still working here on Serpent Beach. They've already won the mid fight. That's a cap.
Yeah, misstep, I think, from 5 randoms. They really had to follow up with that Ashe. They had to take the other high ground. By sitting back there, they just ended up with no one to protect them without flankers to really move around and stay mobile over here. Holding back on the side, they are still managing to hold on the high ground and play around, but With Inara on the cart burning down, they take some ground back, but if they go forward enough, they have to zone. They have to do it aggressively with their back lines. Just lock down as many sight lines as you can.
Big fight here for Slop. Takes care of Ovimm. No real problems now. Klosar is back in action and waiting for his time to shine. Good damage able to find on the Bolka way in the back, but Bolka makes his way back out of there. Prosper Logic is dropped as well. Celestial got very aggressive with their positioning after that mid-fight. Gets stunned and shot down. Does Klosar. Ninu was there to help capitalize. But that's the thing, man, that they got so aggressive, did Celestial in the back of that fight, that 5 randoms were able to kind of get their feet set, find the defense. That zone may be a little bit too aggressive there from them.
Yeah, potentially, but they did manage to get back. They have the high ground on their respawn, and that's the biggest thing about being on Serpent. When you respawn, you just mount right back to high ground. You have that straight out of the respawn. You're not too concerned, but you have to keep eyes on all these areas in the back. Klosar slips in, actually forces the inflame with a minute left. This could give Celestial a chance if they back up, but TooTTooT just not fast enough, can't escape in time.
I wonder if that's just going to be TooTToot's game for the rest of this. Prosper Logic with a point-blank accursed arm, I think, and Nyxus just stuffs it. Not 100% for sure what the call was there, but Nyxus came out on top.
Listen, enthusiasm is really important. You got to be willing to make plays like that, even if that happens immediately after them. I'm just glad he gave it a shot, and 5 randoms still landing some shots from this high ground to keep things locked down, but they gotta play more careful. The mobility from Celestial, it's too much. They can pick any fight they want. They find too.
Klosar and Prosper Logic get to the back line. TooTTooT wins the battle up against Zarini, and now with Nyxus down, this defense has become much more difficult. Prosper gets right up top and starts shooting them the second they leave their spawn, and they really, really need TooTTooT to show up. He's the only one that can force his head out through all this extra damage. It is some good damage on the Znost and the stun over the wall. They definitely know where he is, but Klosar with the flank comes through the back, shuts down Ninu, and that just leaves Zarini on the point all alone, blows him up as well, and suddenly it's a successful conversion for Celestial. Say that 3 times fast as they're up 2-0.
I gotta say, Klosar, when you play Maeve against a comp like this, you really don't have a lot of time to hit your daggers. If you do connect them right away, you're so much of a more lethal force. The fact that Klosar peeks out, hits 2 double boosted shots right. Thank you very, very much for choosing that clip. I had to just bring that up in the moment. Very happy we got to see that. But you have to hit your daggers basically the moment you peek against a double backline. The fact that Klosar hit 580 daggers within a second and then got away, even if he goes down, he still drew a lot of fire while putting out a lot of burst damage. Just those little things can make things a lot faster for your team. You can just turn a fight a lot easier with your flanks or connecting shots like that.
Extra nimble, perhaps, to get back there faster now, and already Zarini is under fire. I don't understand quite what the idea is, but he's just walking into the killing field. Meanwhile, TooTTooT gets to just park on the point and build up the percent. Ninu falls as well. This accursed arm should work a bit better. I said it too soon. He ends up getting nothing out of it. That's okay, because they're still winning the fight up to 60% in control.
I feel very bad for Prosper that this has been the content on the stream so far today. It would make sense if they were pushing after him. They just couldn't make it there quite in time. Assert Dominance does keep them contesting the point, but not a lot of damage coming out. Even after that Assert, the kills are still going to Celestial.
Double for Slopodopolous. Nyxus does make their way back in, at least get the kill into Klosar, but now it's a quadra. Slop starting to rip through the map, but Celestials gets yet another mid-fight win. Jenos gets that final kill for the full-on wipe. Not going to get quite as aggressive this time are Celestial, but this composition from them with all this mobility, I talked about in picks and bans on Serpent Beach, it can feel so hard to beat sometimes.
Yeah, they could just select any fights they want. 5 randoms maybe pick up an Eevee instead of one of the backlines, and they can be a little more mobile. But on the defense, having these backlines should be an advantage. But Celestial, this just means they can take whatever fight they want, go at any time right now, rotate everyone to the side, catch them out, 2 kills right away, straight in their pocket.
That's big for them, and now Ovimm stuck here on the front line battle, and I'm not so sure he wants. The Lian comes out, but maybe lost track of where the Andro was. That sets up for Prosper to get yet another kill. The payload keeps right on truck, and what a map this has been for Celestial here so far, and a lot of it's been Klosar, as you said, just kind of hitting 6 shots that shouldn't happen. The accursed arm coming out again from Prosper. Let's hit something. We got at least a little bit of damage with that first shot, but these have not been the best ultimates from my man. We know he's a little bit better than this, though.
It's a hard one to hit. I'll give him. Listen, he's pressured them out, right? That's what he's telling his team.
Right.
But he's pressured them out. He's at least buying some space. They are countering him pretty well. We'll see how it goes as the card gets a little bit closer to potentially getting capped. Tough thing right now, though. 4 or 5 randoms. Since they're not getting aggressive, Slop is just going to stay on the high ground, holding up there. The fact that he's up there makes this repush significantly better for them. He's the one person that can't get up there. Zarini, his movement goes away. No DR now, no survivability. TooTToot's going to move this card for free.
It's time to start moving in. They did lose Klosar. He's kind of been the man of the hour here for them so far. And Ninu has to pick up what ends up dropping when Zarini has fallen out. He will be the frontliner trying to keep this payload from moving in. They lose Slopodopolous as well. And it might finally be time for Celestial to turn tail. I don't know if they've used their S keys yet all game, but finally they'll have to slow down. Ovimm gets the kill here onto TooTToot and buys 5 randoms. A little bit of breathing.
Yeah, they can't really get too aggressive, though, because if anyone goes too far forward, they're just going to get pounced on by the Maeve and the Andro. There's so much burst damage that can come out basically at any moment.
Tons of turn potential, yeah.
And they've also given up this carry corner completely right now. Klosar and Prosper have this side area totally owned. If they manage to find 1 kill repressuring here, which they do, even during the Buck Wild, the door is just wide open.
It's a double for Prosper. He gets Nyxus and Ninu. Now can turn his eyes toward the backline where bolka must have been stunned and the flick shot onto Ovimm. Prosper, we knew you had it in you, bud. Instead, we'll focus on these last couple of kills. Celestial, take care of Serpent Beach. You might have blinked and missed it.
Yeah, I don't know how well 5 randoms played to their comp there. That double backline, I think they had to be on top of each other a little more to win those duels, but they just played far apart, said, all right, I'll watch this, you'll watch this, and then our flank will go wherever we need him. But there's just too much mobility for Celestial. They just picked a fight wherever no one was watching, dove in, and there was just too much damage for them to react to.
It's as you said, right? They get to kind of just decide when they want their 2-on-1. That's what it felt like to me, right? When do we want Prosper and Klosar to take a fight where they can't lose? Or when do we want Klosar and Slop to work together to catch someone out? And Zarini just could not establish the front line here. And you've talked about it before. For a draft like this to work with that single tank, you need everyone's attention kind of pulled to the side. That should be Ninu, hopefully creating some of that space for Zarini to thrive in. But it just never was there. Zarini would push on his own and die almost immediately. And then the whole of 5 randoms had to fall back.
Yeah, they just weren't moving in sync. Even when Zarini went aggressive, the team didn't really move with him, didn't take that fight. And then when they actually move with him, everybody just stares at Zarini, and because of the stairs that he's playing on, his shield doesn't protect him. He dies literally instantly. They had to be more in sync with Ninu, but Klosar literally just shut him down on the flank the entire game.
What a monster performance here from really everyone on Celestial. Stood up at different times. Slop had the Quadra. Prosper closes out, showing us some of those 6 shots he's known to hill. Not these free ones on the bolka. This one here onto Ovimm. That'll wake you up in the morning. Yeah, Celestial came out clearly showing what they're capable of here with this 2-0. And for 5 randoms now, they got to figure something out, because that is essentially 5 mid-fights in a row, if you want to count Ice Mines, I think, right? Where they have not been able to win. 5 randoms won the very first one on Ice Mines, and since then, it has just been all Celestial. Maybe they can use this break to try and figure something out, Kresnik. We'll put our heads together. Maybe there's something there, but we'll see what they can do to try and slow down Celestial here during this break. Welcome back to the PPC. Still Finch and Kresnik here, still in Europe, currently watching the battle between Celestial and 5 randoms. And what started off as a close back-to-back match has actually kind of turned the opposite way. Serpent Beach goes down 4-0, largely without contest.
Yeah, and I think it has to do with the fact that I feel like they just keep committing to these backlines, and I don't think they can afford to keep doing that against Celestial. 5 randoms, the fact that they keep pulling out these backlines, I feel like they're not as flexible. They can't make as many rotations as Celestial are. So Celestial, if they play more decisively, they can just be all over the map. Any spot that's open, they can push. Whereas if Celestial even opening for 5 randoms, they have to wait for the backlines to get there, send their tank there first just to make space. I feel like they're making it harder for themselves by constantly playing their game around these damage dealers instead of relying on potentially higher skill cap flankers.
And it's been odd, right? It has been a bit of a mix for Celestial of, just as you mentioned, I think having a bit more flexibility with their drafts and what they can execute in game. But they've also kind of just been hitting some sick shots. Some of the stuff Closar was doing on Serpent Beach, I don't know if you could 100% draw up to happen every time, but it was certainly going well for them. I mean, he was finding tons of damage, great sort of entry damage to set up for the rest of the team to follow him back up. So now that we're coming in onto Bright Marsh, do you expect, I guess, that same type of momentum push? I mean, you can play some of those backline damage dealers a little bit more reliably, I feel like, here on Bright Marsh.
Yeah, I would say so. I think this is a blaster flanker map for me personally. Yeah. You probably want a backline just to either spam the point or spam all the way over to apartments if you're holding in your team's tree. But the map's closer knit. You can lock down choke points with explosives, and you can flank in. There's too many places to watch at once, so flankers do have a big value. And flankers, Ruckus is basically a big one. He's going to be filling that role 4 or 5 randoms, potentially meaning that they're going to go for a more aggressive draft. He can play almost anywhere, and if he gets into your backline, he takes so much focus to stop. He's basically an even tankier buff.
Well, Celestial will be taking the Inara, pairing that with the Jenos. So already the plan is clear. I mean, remember on Serpent Beach, how many times did the Inara get to just go stand on point and get like 30-40% for free, basically? We'll see if that same thing can work on Bright Marsh. It's not quite that same sort of killing zone area, but definitely you still want your Inara to be able to hold it down. Meanwhile, 5 randoms go right to the Andro and Furia. So now they've got quote-unquote the double flanker with the Ruckus the edge, right? And the Furia to keep them inflamed.
Yeah, and I was just saying that they need to be more aggressive, they need to be more mobile, and they clearly must be tapped in because that's exactly what they've drafted. Andro's perfect for what they want because not only can he dive, can he go super deep, he can play defensive. He has some of the highest range of some of these flankers, maybe barring Maeve. He's the highest hit scan flanker. You can play that distance, just poke away until you're ready to go, and then get super deep into the back. I heard your little noise about this Koga. I think it's solid for Celestial. I'm assuming it's going to be Prosper on it, and he can stay alive for a while, buying time, dashing, getting that self-sustain. That's what will help you beat these very aggressive flanky comps.
And I like seeing this in Prosper's hands potentially as well, because like we said, maybe the accursed arms weren't all there, but clearly my man was still playing with confidence and in rhythm. We saw towards the end of that game, right? So give him a playmaker like Koga and let him see what he can do. Meanwhile, 5 randoms will now grab the Ashe, so essentially solo tanking. We'll see just how much the Ruckus adds to that. And then the Cassie for a little bit of the backline damage. So really, a lot of the work going to be on the Ruckus and Andro, I think, to kind of open up some of this map for them.
Agreed, but I feel for this Ruckus. This is a rough game to play Ruckus into Koga and Talus. They both just shred him to pieces, and if he spends his missiles, they either just port away, dash away, and either way, they're just not viable targets anymore.
Well, it will be Bright Marsh we go to for Game 3. As I said earlier, this started off as a really close set, but starting to slip away from 5 randoms here a bit. So will Bright Marsh be the venue for their turnaround? We will have to find out as Game 1 about to start. And as you said, we're expecting this Ruckus to probably be the central focus here for Celestial with that Talus and the ability to kind of shred right through him with Slop on the Koga there as well. Prosper actually going over to the Talus. And I think that makes some sense because on Ice Mines, he had a really good game on it. So I suppose why not give it back to him?
Yeah, I definitely don't blame him for that. He can get really aggressive on this map too. Being able to true power to retouch the point when I think this is a pretty good zone map. I was going to say a hard zone map, but you can get pretty far forward while being in relative safety from the point. So being able to slip by definitely will help them significantly. But they have to find the same target if they want to actually win these mid-fights. Slop and Prosper have to end up fighting the same side. Ninu might just be the opening they want with him completely alone, but they're playing scared and maybe for good reason with bolka immediately killing Slop.
Yeah, that's a ton of damage. I'm with Slop. I didn't expect it to happen that quickly either. I was about to talk about how much I loved the high ground positioning from him, and instead he's sitting in the ground rather. 5 randoms now. Had the percent lead up to 42. Celestial had to fall back. Slop has now rejoined his friends. But now this time there's a Ruckus waiting for him on the roof. He'll happily take this battle as he's been shredding him here so far. Forces Slop to fall back. Celestial has reclaimed the center. Zarini will now drop. He wins the battle up against the Ruckus. Still lives, even battling up against one more member. They get the kill on the bulk in the backline too, but it cost them Closar and another. Can Celestial afford to stick around here in this fight? Well, now that they've gotten Ovimm, they certainly can. Ninu as well can't get out of there just with that roll. Makes his way back to the center control, and it's all Celestial yet again.
They have to play a little bit closer to each other in these scrappy fights. If you're in a scrappy fight, you win if you regroup and play your numbers over a team that stays split. Guess what? Celestial group, Five Randoms don't. They take this back with that wall. I don't think Ovimm has a chance to retouch.
He doesn't. Celestial get the capture, and their onslaught continues, and it's on the back of Prosper yet again, making mincemeat of their backline. It's been good work from the Koga as well. The two of them have just been zooming around the map here, Kresnik. Whichever battle they end up taking is favorable for them. Good Void Grip, and Zarini falls as well. Next will fall is Ovimm, and the onslaught can keep right on going. Another dash, and another kill, this time on to Ninu for a double slop. Lighten up the kill feed here for Celestial.
Yeah, the Koga being able to get all this cleanup, it's so brutal for them because they can't dive and kill him. They can do it. Ruckus going to Koga. He has Cyclone Strike. He has 3 dashes. He just runs away. There's a ton of ways for him to just escape this. So all the pressure gets forced onto either this Lian or this Jenos, and there's time enough for them to rotate. The last time they had true power from the Talus, as soon as they decided to go into the backline, Prosper crosses the entire map in 1 second. Suddenly they all collapse, and that's just what makes the dive of Five Randoms just falter.
Nyxus taking a little bit too much damage on the Andro. Way in the back, Zarini was looking for the dive, but everyone turns, and they clean up the kill easily. Nyxus came too far forward right when Klosar reclaimed this position, and the Andro falls as well. A full minute to work with on the clock for Celestial here at this point. Bolka trying to keep Ovimm healed up. Can't quite do it. Does get the kill on the TooTTooT at the very least. They'll take down Klosar as well, so maybe they can still hold on with no tank to come out. But Slop's gonna see if he can just force this payload in, dashes in and nearly gets it. But luckily, Zarini's able to come out and slow him down.
This would be, if they get aggressive, this would be the perfect time for a Prosper Logic true power back cap. And I would love to see it, but Five Randoms, they are a little too aware of it. They're holding really far back, but when you're holding this far back and grouping, look at this aggression from Klosar. He might not find anybody, but did they bait out Zarini far enough to find something?
It's Zarini won at the trade, and Znost can't find that there. Nyxus falls too, suddenly slops in the backline unchecked, and that successful push. That's what you meant, I think, about Klosar. Even though he didn't find a whole lot, he did kind of turn those heads, set up for the rest of Celestial to move their way in, and suddenly they're up 2-0.
Yeah, and they're looking great too. Countering this dive, having this Koga Talus is brutal for the champions that Five Randoms are trying to get very aggressive with. I mean, I think the DPS on the side of Five Randoms is doing fine, but these tanks are struggling to find the confirmable damage. You saw on the damage charts there that Zarini, I believe he was just only a little bit over Bolka. Yeah, only about 1,500 over him in damage. So these tanks getting shredded immediately. They're really the space makers for Five Randoms. Celestial are playing around them very well. They need to either bait someone on the side, maybe have Nyxus play just to slow down Prosper, slow down Slop, so the rest of the team can pop off instead of having all that concentrated hit scan damage focused on one side, on one person, and then their dives might work a little bit better.
Well, Slop actually gets to come up to the high ground this time, Kresnik, and not immediately get domed the way we saw happen on that first mid fight. They'll have to slow down for now. 20% in the back pocket for Celestial. Slop does end up falling. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have brought it up. Klosar ends up falling as well as Ovimm gets another. So this is finally looking good for Five Randoms. A little bit of that mid control, forcing back Celestial. They even getting the kill here onto TooTTooT as well. Luckily, Ninu's able to make it out, but Slop dashes through. He cannot be deterred. Has to use that ultimate so he can disengage safely, and does. But someone's got to find the toucher at this point, Krez. It looks like they're trying to move Klosar in. This worked for them last time. Can it work again? No. Five Randoms get the capture.
A perfect boop onto Klosar actually stops him from touching, and had they not had comeback, they actually would have gotten the retouch. Unable to get it now. A cursed arm from Nyxus does find 2 kills, it looks like, so just buying time on the cart is TooTTooT. Five Randoms now. I think that was the first mid they've won in quite a while, and if
since
they needed it,
yeah.
Now is the time with their potential match life on the line.
And they absolutely needed it. Got to be careful, though. In comes the Talus, and ends up winning that one with a little bit of help from Slopodopolous. This is what we meant on Serpent Beach about them taking the 2v1s that they want. Now able to mow down Zarini inside those apartments to the right side. Should stall this push a little bit on the side of Five Randoms. Celestial now finally taking those fights that they want. But what went so much better for them in that mid-fight than some of those other ones we'd seen?
I think they played a little slower and baited the counter aggression from Celestial first. Celestial were expecting this dive because that's what Five Randoms played, but kind of this misdirection, wait, get the kill on Slop, and then move together. Catch out the people trying to stop the aggression was really the big difference maker. Slop has to slow down if they want to keep it successful, but 5 randoms don't want to slow down, starting this fight with an Inflame.
They are. That means they definitely want to move in, and so Zarini can do what he's been meaning to do all game, start the dive, but he takes a ton of poke, doesn't even get back around the corner. Prosper able to weave in some shots. Nyxus was right there. You can see clearly what the strat was. Doesn't quite come to fruition. Closar in some trouble buying time. Ninu, though, cleans him up for his second kill, and the payload continues to rumble. Perhaps 5 randoms can make something happen of this after all, but Celestial will be respawning with the high ground.
I love watching Ninu play these kind of counter-flanker play when they do try to get aggressive, and that's what they have to do. I don't think they can afford to get that aggressive against the way that Celestial are playing, and they have great positioning right now. Everybody's low on Celestial with only Jenos to heal them up. They won't be able to live through this onslaught.
No, and this has really kind of narrowed the game down. You can see Slop and Prosper were both just kind of walking at them in the center because that's where they have to be now. It's not that same sort of multifaceted flank that made life so hard before. Prosper does get the kill onto Nyxus, but this continues to move. Ovimm and Ninu are working in tandem to keep this payload trucking forward. They know where Prosper is, tucked off to the side there as well, but Closar's putting in plenty of good damage in his own right. Able to get this kill into Ovimm and now find this one on the bolka as well. That might stall this push out. It's purely overtime. Nyxus comes up over the top to try and find the touch to at least keep things moving, but it will cost him his life. Zarini now here to try and pick up the mantle, gets 1 kill, but at this point it's a desperation play. I doubt 5 randoms can hold on to this one, and Celestial find the defense is 3-1 coming into this next mid-fight.
When you're the solo Ruckus trying to hold to the last second, that never feels good, trying to desperately dive into a Koga and Talus. 5 randoms, it's bad for them that things got faltered, of course, but they did get that mid-win, and as long as they can win the next 3, it's a big ask, but they managed to get 1. They have to play it a little bit baity, get the people from Celestial to get a little bit too aggressive, catch them out. Slap will think better of it, so you might have to look for Prosper instead, maybe catch Znost in the back by pushing an angle they're not watching. A lot of potential choices for 5 randoms, and honestly, if Celestial just plays slow, play patient, they have the stronger main tank that can stand on the objective. They could just win by waiting for 5 randoms to make a move.
That's what's worked so well for them, by allowing TooTTooT to just kind of chill on the point and putting the question to 5 randoms. They're able to do it yet again. TooTTooT makes it in first. The tax too high in terms of how much health they had to pay, and so 5 randoms can't make it in just yet. Ultimate does clip multiple members of Znost in the back. That is huge, and that means it's just Ovimm walking in to the wood chippers who can be with the rest of the squad. But now the percent's starting to build up for Celestial. Kresnik, that's exactly the fight you wanted from him.
Yeah, for sure. That was great by them just to wait and counter things out. That was a great time and space as well. 5 randoms still have an answer, though. They potentially have this assert dominance if they can get in far enough, and Zarini wants to do it very far on the right. Prosper caught out, but no one else really able to make it in.
Slop does get the kill on the Nyxus. Prosper falls, though, for them, but Closar winning the duels and somehow still alive. Zarini drops as well, and that should be enough. It's just Ovimm left, buying time, but he knows at this point it's just out of reach. Celestial able to make the big turn-around play. Remembering how Ice Mine starts, it's almost hard to believe it, but they close this set out 3-0.
That's why they call him the Closar, right? Because he ignore that for now.
It gets so close.
I gotta say, him and popping off on that map are common themes I keep seeing. I know he had a crazy penta in the PML last year, now surviving that dive at the very last second. Huge turn for Celestial. If he dies there, then they help the point. Maybe Ovimm's assert dominance isn't just him sitting by the flag waiting for the game to end. But since he's able to live through that kite away, no one to help him anymore, and he just completely locks things down for Celestial.
And really 5 randoms just were, it was too much damage for them to try and deal with from too many points on the side of Celestial. And I almost wonder if maybe the investment into Inara sort of as this point take might even have been a bit too much from Celestial. It so rarely felt like it came down to that. Really, the big difference makers were Slop and Prosper and their ability to kind of spread this map out, win their ones, take favorable 2-on-1s, and then turn those into a number advantage for the rest of the squad.
Yeah, I mean, the mobility from them to take unfair fights, it was the theme of this set from Celestial, and it clearly, I think it's going to be a very strong thing in this meta coming forward. Healers, they're still strong, but now you can pick any, and they can really support your team the way things are going.
We saw Damba do well,
mobile
right?
tanks. Yeah, exactly. I think you just want mobile tanks, mobile flankers, and someone on your team decisive enough to tell your team where to engage.
Slop and Prosper were that partnership here today. Klosar, of course, as you mentioned, had a bunch of great moments as well, and then good luck trying to chew through the Inara that was chilling on the point. This was just a really clean set here from Celestial, and I think this is that potential from the squad that has me looking even a bit beyond just this second set here as well, right? This is the kind of team play that they're going to need if they're going to want to challenge District 69 a little bit later on down the road here as well, too, because that team is going to play cleanly. You need to be able to make those decisive calls, find ways to force advantages for your team, and then know that they're not going to hesitate when you make those calls.
And if you keep drafting the way that they are drafting, I think it's a great way to kind of abuse any weaknesses D69 might have. But by having that mobility, you might be able to just out-aim them, out-fight them that way, you know, if you are playing like that. If one player, maybe D69, they get a little cocky in one fight, one person pushes the wrong way, suddenly you send two flankers to dive them from basically wherever. Play your 5v4 from that point on. I think that might be the key to Celestial potentially starting to take a match off of this top team.
And that's what we would love to see here at this point. So far, Jix69 have looked largely untouched. So Celestial are that first set of the day. They win it 3-0. And those second two maps, that is the truth. I think that first Ice Mines was a bit more competitive, but Serpent Beach and Bright Marsh, they won handily. Looks like Jix69 did win against Rosvet. Not a huge surprise there. ChromaSpace won against Onslaught as well. So still 7-0 up at the top. But Celestial kind of catches up to them a little bit, maybe feel their breath on the back of their neck as they're starting to improve each and every week.
Honestly, the way that the parity looks in this region, I'm surprised. I didn't think it was going to be that split top to bottom, because I really feel like those four teams in the middle, when I see ChromaSpace play, I see Nepo pop off, I see Adium doing whatever he wants sometimes on the flank. I feel like that team can contest too. It is crazy how close this region is, even when the scoreboard itself, the standings, look so separate that they are.
It's been a bit of a surprise, I would say, that this is how Europe has shaken down here so far. And really all the regions kind of have their own unique stories going on. That's another thing that's been a bit of a surprise to me, is that there's been so many different sort of trends or metas developing within each one of those communities. They are borrowing some stuff from each other. We're seeing some consistencies. But for the most part, everyone kind of has their own identity or their own style that they've been playing to, and it has been fun to watch here so far. So we have wrapped up Europe now at this point here, Kreznik. We'll be heading into Brazil here next to try and talk about what are we expecting from this Brazil set as well, because I think that this is another one that could end up being pretty close.
Yeah, I'm excited to see these two kind of middle teams playing against each other, Team Clarity versus Fatal Ambition. Fatal, a team that I think started strong, maybe faltered a bit as time went on from there, but now that they've picked up Isio Bishovindo, they have been looking a little bit better. They have this PC flexibility in their DPS off-tank line, so they're kind of playing this sanguine style where they have the console DPS, the one PC DPS able to bring out these Cassie, these Bomb Kings, think that they were maybe missing before. Brings a lot, I think, to the team there in that sense. And I'm playing against Clarity, who after picking up RC, I feel like their DPS line has been monstrous. So I'm expecting to see a clash of flankers, of hit scans on all these maps. This is just an absolute DPS brawl across however many maps it takes.
Yeah, and it should be another close one, right? That's what we're talking about coming into this very first set here in Europe, that this one would be one that was back and forth. It might be a potential damage dealer's brawl. So hopefully we'll get a little bit more of that same action happening in Brazil. So that's going to do it for Europe. Give us a few minutes. You're going to get everything ready for that second set. We'll be right back with Brazil.